Hey everybody, it's Mo Bunnell, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue. I'm author of The Snowball System, and I and my teams have trained over 15,000 experts all over the world, sound, effective, efficient, authentic business development techniques. And I'm joined today by Nathan Barry. Nathan's got a super interesting perspective. He's CEO of Convertkit, which is my favorite email platform for training and for servicing clients at scale. And for our audience, I think Nathan's perspective might be one of the most valuable perspectives that I've ever interviewed, that he has. It's truly unique based on what we've done on the show so far. And I think on the show, what we'll do. What I asked Nathan today is what's his big idea for how we can grow our books of business, grow our relationships, and hack our own habits to grow our own career. Always investing in the long game, always investing in teaching and nurturing client relationships. And his perspective is just completely different than anybody we've interviewed so far. And I think we will interview. So I can't wait to get that to you. But before we do, know that if you want to sign up for our weekly newsletter, which will be delivered via Convertkit, we use Convertkit. It's awesome. It has all kinds of weekly insights on our best content, completely complimentary. There's no charge to it, but we bring you our best thinking every single week. And if you sign up, one of the things that we give you right out of the gate is called Grow Big Growth Guide. And it has 8 beliefs, 8 principles that will guide you to growth over time. Really killer. You can read it in about 8 minutes, 8 principles, 8 minutes, and it will change your thinking on what business development is and give you some practical tools you can put in place right away. So how do you get it? You go to growbigplaybook.com. growbigplaybook.com. You can download it right away, and then you'll be signed up for weekly content every single week. Think of it as an annuity that's going to help your BD skills every week all year long. All right, so here we go. Here is Nathan Barry. Hey everybody, I'm really excited to have a little different angle on this week's show. You know, a lot of times we're grabbing these authors that have some kind of expertise around building a personal brand, or somebody that's really great at communication skills or things. But I've always been perplexed, I guess, at why more people in our audience don't have an email list. They don't have a natural way of staying in contact with all their most important clients and prospects. So with me today, as you know, I've got Nathan Barry. Nathan is the CEO of Convertkit, and he's helped thousands, tens of thousands, I don't know, Nathan, you'll have to say, but a lot of people build a following to invest in people in a helpful way to stay top of mind and deepen relationships. So Nathan, I think we know where this is going to go, but I want to hear your nuance about it. What's your big idea that can help our audience grow their book of business, grow their relationships, and in effect, then grow their career?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. You're right. I'm going to talk about email newsletters. That's basically my favorite thing. So I played video games growing up. And so, you'd play a video game and it would be really fun. But if you want to do it differently, you could plug in a cheat code and it would unlock some ability as a character. Or, I played Age of Empires was one of the games, and you could get this little car that had a machine gun, even though it was, medieval times, basically, with the right cheat code. And I think of having an audience and having a newsletter as that cheat code for business, where everyone is operating in one way. And the cheat code is basically, what if you had 100 people or 500 people or 10,000 people who were your biggest fan? Everything that you want to do, they're like, oh, Mo, what do you got going on? Tell me about it. Each thing that you come out with, they're in your corner saying, oh, that's amazing. New product, let me share it on Twitter. Let me tell my friends. Let me help you. And you just have these advocates for you who follow you from each thing that you do and promote your book and everything else. And that's what it is, having an audience. And not just any audience, but having an audience that is really engaged and you can actually push content to them. So there's a big shift, right? Of if you think about platforms, some of them are where you can follow someone, right? And if you put content, it might show up in their feed, or if it's on your blog, right? They can go out and check, okay, yep, he had a new article. Let me go and remember to read that. And then there's the platforms where you can push content to them. And that's things like email and SMS, where when I have something new, I can push it to you and get it in front of you. And so when you're looking at platforms where you want to have people follow and subscribe to you, the push content, the push platforms are going to be much more valuable than someone who has to pull, and the initiative is on them. So that's a big part of why I love email. And I just think about how my own career has sort of changed over time, where I started out talking about designing iPhone applications. And then I started talking about, web applications, and people made that pivot with me. And then I started talking about marketing and building audience. And then I started talking about running a software company and everything. And at each point, as I made these pivots, which is not easy to do, right? But I had these people in my corner who said, like, first it was 500 people, and then it was 1,000. And now it's 25,000 people who say, like, hey, Nathan, whatever you have going on, keep us posted. We want to support you. We want to buy your products and everything else. And it's just immensely powerful.
Oh, I love it. And I want your specific take on this, because a lot of people who have email lists are entrepreneurs. They're authors, they're presenters, they're speakers, they're creators. In Convertkit just has such a great product. We use Convertkit. I love what you've built. Absolutely love it. Better than anything else I've ever seen. But a lot of our audience are professionals. They're lawyers, they're consultants, they're accountants, they're account managers at big service-based companies like healthcare, outsourcers. And they don't think in this way. Like, they sort of feel like, oh, the corporation owns the email list. But if they're an expert, they have something to share. They have advice to give. And I wonder if what your thought is on that, about how they can use an email list to keep in touch with their audience. Even if it's 100 people, man, if it's the 100 right people,
right,
speaking to them weekly or monthly or something like that, it's really powerful. Your take.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying about the 100 right people, because we can see email lists earn a living for their creator in a bunch of different ways, right? And if you had 100 people who were your wealth management clients, like, that might be an entire business. That might be all you need, and that might be earning more than 10,000 or 100,000 people who, might be buying an ebook or reading sponsored content or something, right? So there's very different revenues per subscriber, depending on the niche, depending on the type of subscriber. Let's run with an example. I'm thinking about the accounting firm that I use, right? So for Convertkit, we've got 30,000 customers, 25 million a year in revenue. We're in a bunch of different locations, right? So I think I have Nexus in something like 15 or 18 states. And so it's complicated from an accounting perspective. And the accounting firm that we use has, I don't know if it's an official email list, but they send out content on things like the Paycheck Protection Loan. They send out content on, QSBS, the Qualified Small Business. I don't even know what the S stands for, but like these tax strategy things. And I love that. Some I know about already, and I'm like, oh, yep, I've read that in the news, or I've known that. But they're just saying, every month they're saying, hey, here's the kind of thing that we're teaching about. R&D tax credits for software companies, right? That matters. And so if you're even in professional services, you're like, I'm not selling anything. I don't have an ebook. I don't have any of those things. It's like, well, you can still build that mind share, that reputation. Another thing that's on our mind, like if we're going to law firms, is I've been in the process of doing more investments, and we're acquiring a company right now. And so a law firm could be saying, hey, here are the 10 things you should be looking at before you acquire your first company, or, any of these things. Professional services are probably the best positioned to have an email list, and it's so, like, delivering that content on a regular basis is so much more valuable than sending out like the Christmas card. You're trying to be top of mind for the client in both cases. One delivers value, and the other says, like, you used an automated service to send me a Christmas card, but I'm actually paying you for tax strategies. I'm paying you for marketing advice, whatever the thing is. And so deliver that value and just find a cadence that works. Monthly is great for professional services. And the important thing is quality over quantity in that case.
I love it. Okay, one last follow-up question, and we'll wrap up this episode with I'll ask you how people can learn more about ConvertKit. Obviously, we know we're going to do that. But one last question. I think a barrier in a lot of professionals' mind is, oh no, I can't have something generic. I've got to have this one-to-one relationship with my clients, with my prospects. And we just don't see it that way. I'll give you an example and get your take on it. We see it like a capital T-shaped graph, where that, yes, you want a really deep relationship with a precious few, where that's where you're having a phone call. That's where you're talking about the tax strategies in your example. That's where you're picking up the phone and calling somebody. They're so important. You want to offer your time to them. That's the base of the T. But boy, is it really helpful to keep in touch with a lot of people with this type of content. So your thought on the idea of like the capital T-shaped graph and augmenting the really deep relationship with a precious few with a larger audience where you're delivering content.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right approach. When you think about the vertical line in that T, that's going to be a lot of your clients, the people who are paying you, who you've built that relationship with. But then the horizontal line, those are a lot of your prospective clients. And so imagine, I think about, well, I'm a designer, so I think about fonts, right? There's all kinds of different types and weights and everything in fonts. And so when we have our T,
you've watched the Helvetica movie, I'm sure, because I know we're going to bond on this, but okay, back to you. I love design too. Okay, sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
So when you think about a T, right, we have this skinny horizontal line and this skinny vertical line, but there's nothing to say that horizontal line can't have depth and weight and thickness to it. And so a way that you do that is finding a communication method that has leverage. If you and I are having a conversation, we're just talking, there's no leverage in that, right? It's a one-to-one conversation, the same 30 minutes, the same hour. We both spent it. That's as far as it goes. But as we record the conversation and we share it and it goes out to the newsletter and all of that, then there's leverage. We spent 30 minutes each, but someone, collectively, they might spend 100 hours consuming that content across, hundreds or thousands of people. And it also works with the same sort of depth. When we have this conversation, everyone tuning in and listening, they're like, okay, I've never actually met Mo before, but I kind of feel like I know him. And then when I say, okay, I'm going to hire Mo, I'm going to hire whoever for, professional services or consulting or anything else, they're going to sit down at that first client meeting and they're not going to skip the introductions, but they're going to be like, oh no, I've listened to your podcast. I've read your newsletter for 6 months. I know everything on this. And here are the questions I want to dive right into, because it's no longer like really shallow and wide. It's deep and wide. And then when you have that conversation for someone to switch to a client, then you can just go even deeper and get a head start on everything because you've put content out there in a way that has leverage.
Nathan, when you had me with you love fonts, I was already done. But to your point, someone else that's watching or listening to this, if they love design, same thing, right? And I feel like your idea of leverage is so important, because if somebody's going to write a brief to one client, for gosh sakes, why not change 10% of it, repurpose it, and send it to 1,000 people or whoever is on your list? And that's your point. So I absolutely love it. Well, folks, we are going to have 4 more episodes with Nathan. Of course, in one, I'm just going to do a recap, but we got 3 more big meaty episodes with Nathan. So if you like this, definitely watch the next episode where we get specifically deep into how to bring more opportunities across the goal line, how to get more yeses. But before you do that, Nathan, people are going to want to know about Convertkit. I'm 100% of it. Where do they go to learn more?
Yeah, just go to convertkit.com. We've got a free plan where you can sign up and have up to 1,000 subscribers on your email list totally for free. And then if you want to switch to a paid plan, it just starts at $29 a month and kind of scales with your business. So convertkit.com is the place to check it out.
I love it. We use Convertkit and love it. Well, thanks, Nathan. And everybody stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our second meaty episode with Nathan Barry. Nathan's the CEO of Convertkit. If you didn't check out the last episode, make sure you do, where he drops some knowledge on how we can deepen our relationships with our clients, how we can bring in more opportunities, and how we can take a hold of our career with one simple tool. So go back and listen and watch to that if you haven't already. But today, Different question. We're going to go really deep on how you can bring more opportunities across the goal line, how you can get more clients saying yes to do the meaty work, the less commoditized work that you want to do. So Nathan, if you had to answer this question, what would your answer be? How can our audience get more yeses? How can they get more of the meaty work that they want to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so we're already starting from the place of you've built a newsletter, you're putting out content that delivers value and builds your reputation. Though actually, in the last episode, we didn't touch quite as much on reputation. So let me share a little bit on that right now. Because when you think about all of the service providers, all of the consultants that you could hire, there's a lot of them out there. You're looking at price, location. Do you hit it off with that person? Is there that personal connection? But one of them that stands out for me as I hire people is, are they actually any good? Right? Do they just talk a big game, or do they really know what they're doing? And so as you're trying to stand out as a professional, like, how do you signal that you actually know what you're doing? And one of the things that I think is so effective is, this is one of our mantras at Convertkit, is teach everything you know. And not just teach the things that you feel like you are a certified expert on, or you're the top 1% in the world at, but no, as you learn things, teach them. And what happens when you do that is you build expertise. And so I was actually, when I was doing consulting years ago, this is the reason that I got into writing a book, because I was doing iPhone app design for people. And, as I'm trying to win freelance design gigs, I thought, you know what? If I was the person who had written the book on designing iPhone apps, I bet that would make it a lot easier to close deals. I bet it would bring in more clients. I bet I would get a lot more from it. And so that's what got me down the path of creating a newsletter, writing a book, marketing and promotion. Now, the quick version is the book was so successful that I actually never took on another design client after that. But I think the theory still would have worked out, that I had built expertise by teaching and sharing, and that would have made it a lot easier to get clients, right? So that's how you elevate the reputation. The second thing would be that you want to automate some of aspects of this conversation. So it's hard to remember to reach out to each person and say, wait, did I ask them about becoming a client? Did I ask them to buy my coaching services yet? Shoot, I don't remember. And then when you're talking about it, let's say you and I have just met and I'm like, you should sign up to be a coaching client, or, let me design your app for you or something like that. And you're like, I don't know you yet, So there's a couple things. Did I remember to pitch you on the services? And two, did I actually do it at the right time where we built enough trust and rapport that pitch, that ask is going to land well? And that's where automation comes in, and email can be really pretty special because I can do both of those things. I can create an automated sequence. So when you join my newsletter over the next, say, 4 to 6 weeks, you get this content on a set cadence. And then what I can do is I can write in these little calls to action for whatever it is. Maybe if I have a book, I want you to write a review on Amazon. Well, first I want you to buy the book. And then if you buy the book, I want you to write a review on Amazon. Or it could be that I'm putting out my best content. We used accountants as an example earlier. My best content on tax strategies, on building wealth. And then in there, I say, hey, if this has been helpful, then why don't you book a consultation call where we could talk about, becoming the accountant for your firm. And I could even track things of, if people click on that but don't book the call, any of these things. And I could automate emails around how engaged they are to try to get a feel for, am I pitching the right people at the right time? And then I just have this system that's working for me to both build trust and then to turn that trust into maybe not clients fully, but at least conversations with people who are interested in becoming a client.
Oh man, Nathan, there's so much meat there that I want to ask so much. We could make a 2-hour long episode just on this. I want to comment on two things. One is like you, and of course we have product placement, our own book. But I tracked how much time it took to write the Snowball system. It was like to write the book and take it to market was a little less than 900 hours. It's like 864 or something like that. And that's a lot of time. To your point, that's a that's a lot to bite off. But writing the content, forcing yourself to automate it. So I'll blend both my comments and I'll ask a question back in a second. But to automate the writing of a book, had I done it at the time, to drip out content, say just monthly, and write 1,000 words a month, but get that out. I loved your mantra, teach everything you teach everything you know, to drip that out to your clientele, to your prospects using an email list, say once a month. Gosh, in a couple years, not only would you have fostered deeper relationships with all the people who got your content and your audience would have grown, but you would have written a book too in the meantime. And I love that. So content. So question back to you is, boy, when you see professionals, especially think of like really high end executives that are inside big professional service firms or service based companies. What have folks done in Convertkit to grow that audience, to drip out the campaign, to try to build their reputation?
When you're teaching and you're looking to reach a bigger audience, because something that happens really easily is you're like, I'm going to start a newsletter, I'm going to grow my audience, I'm going to do all these things. And you start writing, it goes out to like 0 people or 5 people or 20, and that's discouraging, right? Because you put in those, what was it, 946 hours or something, right, into creating something, and if people don't read it and engage with it, then it feels like wasted effort. And so what you want to do is grow that into an actual audience. And the tactics that I'd recommend would change depending on the size of the audience, right? And I kind of think of it in a few buckets. 0 to 10, 10 to 100, and then 100 to 1,000. And let's just start with that. So those are the number of subscribers that we would have. 0 to 10, the strategy is really simple. What you're going to do is you're going to write down, this is what I'm teaching. This is what I'm talking about. And this is who it's for. I was teaching design to, either beginner designers or to developers who wanted to learn design. And so what I started with is I sent out emails, like I just opened up Gmail or opened up my text messaging app and said, hey, I'm starting a new site teaching design to non-designers. If that's something that you'd be interested in, like I'd love to add you to the list. And you'd be surprised at how easy it is through that direct outreach method to get your first 10, 20, 30 subscribers or so. And that's going pretty well. The thing that I always say you should do after that is to ask them, like just send out that first email and say, hey, quick question, or actually 2 questions. 1, where do you go right now to learn about design? And then 2, what are your biggest pain points and struggles? Right? And this could apply to anything. I use design as an example, but let's say you're working on a sales team. Where do you go right now to learn how to be better at sales? And then what are your biggest struggles? Those lists get me 2 different things. 1, it gives me a list of communities that maybe I knew they existed, maybe I didn't. And those are places that I can put my content, right? So there's all these design communities. I'm like, let me write a guest post for them. Let me start participating in that community, making connections. Maybe there's some places I can share my content. And then the other thing is the list of frustrations. I'm stuck with like in the sales example, how do I get clients on the phone? How do I get over my fears of cold calling? How do I build a reputation in the industry? All of these things. And then the next content that you should write is just answering those frustrations. And it's giving you your whole list of this is what your audience is concerned, overwhelmed, and confused by. And so you can answer that directly and they'll be like, wow, this email list that I've joined, they don't have to know there's only 25 people on the list. They're going to feel like it's written just to them because effectively it is. So that is the approach, right? 0 to 10 subscribers. And then that 10 to 100 is basically where you are promoting the content. You're writing stories, you're writing essays, whatever it is, that are answering those people's questions. And then just ask them to share it. Hey, if that was useful, why don't you go tell a friend? So we're kind of going from our little circle out to a bigger circle. Then the last thing that I recommend kind of for the 100 to 1,000 subscribers is where you bundle up some of this content. And Mo, you've actually done this really well with some of the things that you have, that you share on the podcast and other things. And you bundle it up into a free ebook, a PDF, an email course, some additional resource that you're saying, hey, you could learn from all these different sources, but I just went ahead and I made the definitive guide for you. Opt in here. Normally this would sell for $29, or normally consulting with me is $100 or $500, but you can get the bulk of it for free if you sign up for my email list. And like, it's not just sign up for my email list because you'll get emailed every week. It's sign up for my email list, and the very first thing you'll get is this really valuable piece of content, this ebook or something else. And that's really when you start to see visitors turn into subscribers at a much higher conversion rate. And that's how you can grow to, say, 1,000 subscribers and beyond.
I love that. And I want to put a bow on this for our audience, because I'm thinking with empathy from such our deep technical experts that are listening or watching this. And then Nathan, I'll come back to you and ask where people should go to learn more about Convertkit. But so many of our clientele are these crazy deep experts. They're an account executive that represents their healthcare company, some of the largest in America, or they're an outsourcer that's worldwide, and they run an account or a clientele and they only have 10 people that are important to them. Or maybe they're a deep technical IP attorney that files patents, or a downstream water rights lawyer, or a tax controversy expert that's got a JD and a CPA. Even if you're those people, folks, even if you only have 10 people that matter, an email list can be helpful to you. Even if you only have 100 people that you're calling on, or that are your sort of clients for life, an email list can help you, because it gives you scale. It gives you the chance to teach everything to automate. And like Nathan was saying, this has scale from 0 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000. So it can always work. And there's a lot to it. So Nathan, where should people go to learn a bit more about Convertkit?
Everything about Convertkit is just at convertkit.com. A little thing that I would plug is we have stories on all these different types of creators that we featured. And you can just see it, or if you go to Google Convertkit creator stories, we have both videos and a book and written stories. If you just want more examples of how these strategies have played out across a whole range of creators, because you're right, there's all kinds of different types of creators out there, types of professionals. And so just having those examples are great. So just Google Convertkit creator stories, and you'll have 10 to 15, stories that you can find one that resonates with you.
Well, thank you, Nathan. This was super insightful. Folks, I'm really excited for our next question. The last episode was really good. If you didn't catch that, go back and catch that. The next one, I'm going to ask Nathan, how do you deepen relationships with an email list? And I think his answer is going to surprise you. Hi, everybody. Welcome for our third episode with Nathan Barry, CEO of Convertkit, my favorite product and service for scaling through email and how to add value to your clients. Now, if you didn't catch the last couple episodes, you want to go back and listen to those, because I asked Nathan his biggest idea to help you grow your book of business, deepen your relationships, and enhance your career. We talked deep in the last episode about how to get more opportunities across the goal line. And in this one, the question's going to be, how do we deepen relationships with content using an email list? So there's your question. Run.
So when you're first meeting someone, right, you don't have much of a relationship. Maybe they have a reputation from who the introduction came from, or you already know them a bit in the industry, but it's really shallow. You each don't know that much about each other. And so what I like to do is take as much information about me as possible and put it out there in my email list. So I will even include things like trips that I've gone on, things that, like little details about my family, where I live, some of those things, because I want them to do business with me because of who I am as a person, in addition to the value that I can provide from them. Right. And so, we talked about teach everything you know in a previous episode. And we have this other concept called work in public, of sharing the steps and the process in your journey so that they can connect with you. Like I always wonder when I'm hiring a service provider, is this just one person? Or am I hiring a firm full of 50 people? And I don't know. And those questions make me a little bit more hesitant to make that hiring decision, because it's just things that I need to know. And a lot of people will, try to hide behind, if they're just one person, hide behind like the royal we, and put this out there and try to seem bigger than you are. And what I love is when people are really authentic and open and direct and just tell the story of, hey, I've been running this business for 8 years. It's grown to this stage. It's still just me. These are some of the favorite types of clients I've worked with. Here are stories that I've learned. Any of those things that you can teach and share is going to help someone following along, feel like they can know and trust you more. And a lot of making that sale or winning them as a client is just about building that trust. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really taking them on a journey where they're learning about you consistently over time while you're delivering value to them. And email courses are one of my favorite things for this. So basically the way that an email course works is if you sign up today, well, let's say, Mo, you and I both we're signing up for an email list, right? And it's for an accounting firm that we're going to hire. We're trying to learn more about our accounting practices. And so if I sign up today, then 2 days later, I'm going to get one email. A couple days after that, I'm going to get another email. And this is a series of emails that's timed to when I sign up. And now what happens is if you sign up a week later, you're going to get the same emails on the same cadence, but delayed by a week. It's scheduled to when you signed up versus something like a broadcast, which is an email to everyone on the same, like in the list at the same time. It all hits the inbox at the exact same time. So what that means is I, as the accounting firm or whoever, I can craft this experience for new subscribers where I could deliver a really valuable piece of content and a little bit of detail about our firm. Hey, we're a boutique 3-person accounting firm. We started in this, way back when. Here's a little bit of the story. And over time, I can just shape that and deliver more content and expertise. Now, as a blogger or a content creator, I do the same thing where I think, what is the best content that I've ever written? The stories or the articles that I'm most proud of. Like I wrote this one a year and a half ago titled The Ladders of Wealth Creation. And it's like this really long 4,000 or 5,000 word post. It's got illustrations. I put a ton of time into it. But the thing is, it's buried in the archives on my blog. I can't put it across the top spot on my blog forever, right? It's got to drop down as it come out with new things. And so what the email course does is it lets me feature that and say, hey, everyone who joins my newsletter, I should make sure they read at least this piece of content. And so in the third email, the fourth email, right, that's going to be in there of like, hey, let me take you through this post, The Ladders of Wealth Creation. And I can make sure that over time, each person gets to know me on a set cadence, basically. And then by the time maybe we have a phone conversation, or by the time we talk about working together, you've already read all of my best content over the previous month or two, and you're going to know my way of doing business. And it's going to make you a better client. It's going to make me, a better service provider because we understand each other better, and we have this shared context. So those are a couple things. I like to tell stories. I like to share, more about the personal side, and I like to do it all in an automated way so I can build the system once that just keeps working for me.
Oh, and you just closed where I was going to go. So it's perfect segue. Build it once and it keeps working for you. And in the professional service and service-based world, folks aren't used to that. So it's like everything feels bespoke. Every speech is a new speech. Every client is the same conversation to some extent. And by automating things like you're talking about, you get leverage and you get scale. So that the hours you put in creating that system for client or prospect onboarding, now once you build it, you're done, set it and forget it, and that's going to serve you for a decade. So I absolutely love that. I want to have a follow-up question because I want to get your thoughts on this. So you gave a perfect example of the starting point that all our audience should hear. Like, here's how to build a sequence to start to nurture and grow trust with somebody that's interested in knowing you. Another way to do it, and I want to get your take on this, is to take a specific topic. In the last episode, you gave some great hints on discovering what topics are important to your audience. So folks, if you didn't hear that, go back and watch the last episode. But you gave great tips on learning what those are. Yeah, and subscribe and buy the book and all everything else. Yes. So when you learn what those are, let's say I'll give you a specific example. I focus on entrepreneurs and I file very technical medical device patents. Say I'm an attorney and that's my expertise. Well, I could tape a series of 3 or 4 videos that tell entrepreneurs these are the top things you need to know when you're thinking about building your whole company around intellectual property. And yeah, some of it's about the actual patent filing, but here's a whole bunch of other stuff you need to know. Let's say I taped 4 8-minute videos on that, and I build a sequence that when somebody signs up, those drip out over 4, 5, 6, 8 days, whatever you want. And then I built that. And then every time I meet somebody that might be a client, I can steer them to that. And they're developing a relationship with me without me even being there. So comment on the power of developing courses around a very specific issue clients or prospect face, building it once, which is a little different than the get to know about me,
Right.
which was great you shared. But here we're talking about very specific content. So what are your 2 cents on that?
Yeah, I think it's really, really effective. A lot of where people struggle when building an audience is they end up, they have a lot of general interests. And so they talk about a wide range of things. And what happens is people usually are looking to solve a specific problem. Maybe it's how do I file my first patent? How do trademarks work? Any of these other things. And so the more you can put together content around an exact problem, right? This is, if anyone's followed YouTube channels or discovered new YouTube channels, I bet a lot of them you found because you were searching for a specific problem. I just bought a new record player, or my first record player last week. And so I was Googling over the weekend, okay, how do I tune and configure, and get the weight and balance just right on this new record player? And of course, YouTube is where I'm going for that, right? So people are searching for specific problems to solve. And if you can solve that through content, that's going to be a great hook to draw new people into your audience. So a couple more things on that. One, with email, you can drip that out over time. Like you said, instead of it being 1 30-minute video, it could be 6 5-minute videos on each lesson over time. The thing that I love about that is it's training people to open your emails. Because now when they're saying, oh, I got an email from Nathan, they're not saying, oh, it's probably pitching me on becoming a client. Okay, whatever. They're going, oh, his last email was so good. I learned this thing. Let me dive in and I'm going to get a higher open rate. I'm going to get higher engagement because they know that that's where the value is. The other thing is that you can work in these little calls to action. Maybe on the 3rd email, it's like, hey, have you considered hiring a new firm? You can even do things like, here are 5 things to look for when hiring an accounting firm. And when someone jumps off, right? So we watched the video on a tax strategy, right? And then at the end of the video is, hey, here's 5 things to look for. And I click off to that article. And at the end of that, I read through it. And maybe the article is a little bit tailored to like what I believe you should hire an accounting firm, which ties into hiring my firm because I built my firm around the principles that I believe you should use. And so you end up with not only great content that people are loving and really engaged with, but then you can have these really nice segues into a call to action. And the final thing is when someone gets on that call of like, okay, let's do the exploratory sales call, their questions, their mindset is already shaped around how you've built your business because you're the one that trained them on what they should be looking for, what they should be hiring, because you're the expert who put out that content. And so it basically makes, this flywheel, this snowball that is bringing everything from, a cold lead all the way through into someone who is very eager to talk to you and become your client.
It's so insightful the way you just laid that out, and it prompted me to think of something I hadn't thought of quite this way. So we'll do a quick answer on this one, and then I'll ask you how people can learn about Convertkit. But the nuance that I just heard from you, and I hadn't thought of it this way, is lots of professionals are good about working with their marketing department to send out what you call the broadcast. Hey, we're going to have a webinar, or here are the things you need to know about the PPP loan forgiveness. That's the kind of thing people are sending out now as we record. But professionals aren't as good about developing these sequences that are about training and solving a specific issue in the example you just gave. And I think that's
Right.
where a tremendous amount of power is. So, and I don't actually know of any high-end consultants that are doing that or professionals. So just give a quick sort of put a bow around that idea of the value of effectively developing training that's dripped out over time, but that's automated and sequenced in a product like Convertkit.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ideas that we've talked about and sort of bringing them all together. The first one is if you're the one that's teaching, that builds your reputation. That means that people are going to trust you more. The hard thing is that's super time consuming. And so you're going to end up on this treadmill of, oh, I have to put out content every day, every week. And that's where this automation comes in, is that you can focus on quality over quantity, because you know that every new person coming into your world is going to get these 5 emails. It's going to get this training on this one thing. And a lot of people think that, if I give away too much for free, that people won't hire me. And really the opposite is true. Like the more I learn, the more I go, oh, wow, this is really complicated. And I feel like I'm way more of an expert than I was an hour ago or a few weeks ago in the email sequence. And now I know that instead of doing it myself, I need to hire a professional, or there are all these missteps and things like that. So all of this it's a system that's going to work for you, that takes you, someone from coming into your orbit as a professional all the way through into becoming a client. And I can't stress enough how important it is for this to be a system and a flywheel, rather than this one-off effort where you're like, okay, I got to take a break from what I'm doing and go promote my firm or grow my audience, each week. Like that's hard to remember to do. And so instead you have this, just working for you.
Nathan, I love it. You just came to mind. So many professionals we know help their clients through continuing education initiatives. They call it CLE credits or whatever. And they typically tell us they'll spend 20, 40, 60, 80 hours developing this bespoke training just for one client, maybe 20 people in the room. They do it once and that's done. Gosh, if we're going to put that time and effort into figuring out some kind of really technical educational problem that or solution we're going to deliver live, why don't we just take the content, we've already built it, and automate it and create an email sequence that can go out and help hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands and draw interest to us. And then, like you said, the person that's teaching is probably going to win the work. So why not automate it? So I love it. We use this.
Something else that I want to put in on is look at the last 10 problems that you solved for clients. What were they? Go through the list and say, okay, for Joe, I taught him how to do this. For Sarah, we handled this other thing. List that out. And that's basically what your content is. Exactly what you're saying of, this work that you did one off, go change 10, 20% of it. Names were changed to protect the innocent kind of thing, and turn it into a more general lesson. And that's the sort of thing that people are going to really engage. And the important thing is, if you've been serving the clients, you've already been doing half or 2/3 of the work required to create one of these assets that's going to work for you long term.
Man, I love it. And like you said in a prior episode, you do it once and it works for you forever. I'm thinking back when we converted to Convertkit last spring from another provider, and we love Convertkit. And then we started building these training-based sequences. One's at bdhabits.com, bdhabitsforteam.com, winning-more.com, bdcampaigns.com, all these different ways of people getting value. Nathan, we've had thousands of people go through these, and my heart sings, I'll get an email from somebody I've never met before. Like at bdhabits.com, this happened a couple of days ago. Somebody emails me, I've never met them at all, and they talk about how that course changed their life. Like, that's cool. That's just, that brings an emotional aspect to it as well, in addition to all these efficiency kind of aspects that we talked about. So close us with this. People are going to want to know more about Convertkit. Where do they go?
Yeah, they should go to convertkit.com. I've also, following my own advice, blogged about the entire process of growing Convertkit from 0 to 25 million a year in revenue at nathanbarry.com. So if you want to subscribe to my newsletter or follow along, there's hundreds of blog posts over the last 8 years that will take you all the way through it.
It feels like a great time to mention nathanbarry.com in the answer about deepening relationships, don't you think? Everybody,
Yes,
if you didn't catch that, it's nathanbarry.com. That's nathanbarry.com. All right, everybody. If you didn't catch the couple videos before this, make sure you nail them. We're going to get one more question for Nathan in the next episode. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to ask him how to hack your own habits to keep doing these kind of things that we're talking about. So make sure you don't miss the next episode. Hey everybody, it's Mo, and I'm back again for the final episode where I've got Nathan Barry, CEO of Convertkit, and we're going to do this one fast. Nathan, we have covered some amazing raising ground talking about how people can build their book of business, their relationship, their career. We did a deep dive in the episode after that about how to bring more opportunities across the goal line. We did a deep dive episode next about how to deepen relationships using email list. So in this last episode with you, I'm going to do a wrap of everything I learned in the next one, folks. Don't miss it. But in this last episode, I actually don't know what you're going to answer on this. We agreed we're going to go with the flow. So throw a curveball back at me, something insightful. How do busy professionals with one foot in delivering thousands of hours a year of their expertise and one foot into trying to retain and grow their client base, how do they hack their own habits to keep doing the things that we've been talking about?
Yeah, that's so good. Well, like you touched on, the most important thing is to do it consistently. So there's two things that I'm looking for in business anywhere. I think they're the most important things. I'm looking for anywhere I can find leverage. And we talked about that with email lists, right? An audience, any of that, taking something that you do once and trying to leverage. The other thing that I'm looking for is anywhere that I can get compound returns, right? So compounding, as I don't even know who to attribute it to. I don't think it's actually an Einstein quote, but it being the most powerful force on earth. And so habits are where you actually get that, right? If you and I sit down and say, we're going to start a new audience, we're going to write, we're going to produce it, it's going to go really slowly, right? I mean, if we do it for a month, 2 months, there's not going to be meaningful traction. And that's like you and I putting money in the stock market or something. And like, I put $1,000 in and a couple months later, I just have like $1,005. Like, this is pointless. This is dumb. I'm going to go do something completely different. And, any of our friends who are into finance would be like, what are you doing? It takes longer to get results than that. So that's where habits come in. That's sticking with it for a long time. The thing that I do is I use an app called Streaks. And this app is for tracking habits. It's for tracking a chain that you build up over time. I'll show, I don't know if it shows up in there on the screen. This is my Streaks app. I have a few different habits that I'm tracking. One of them is sending my newsletter every week, 34 weeks in a row of sending the newsletter every week, right? We're starting to get compound gains. I have writing every day. It can be any amount. The important thing is if I write 100 words or 1,000, that's fine. Anything checks the box. I have 168 days in a row of that. I've got working out on here. I only have 2 days in a row of that. So, we've got some progress to be made. And then the last one is practicing the piano. I'm trying to learn to play the piano. And I have 64 days in a row of practicing the piano. And so whenever I'm trying to turn something from one-off effort into a consistent habit that I'm going to do long enough to get, compound gains from, I just do it every day, even if it's for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And I use the app Streaks to do that. So it pops up and reminds me and says, hey, were you going to write today? Were you going to practice the piano? Or it'll also do weekly. So it'll be like, hey, it's Tuesday. You send your newsletter every Tuesday. Have you done that yet? And that's how you stay consistent, because it's that consistent effort over a long period of time that's going to get you the results that you want.
Man, that makes all the sense in the world. And we preach that same thing. Like one particular thing is spending a few moments a week, like 15 minutes, picking 3 things you're going to do the next week when it comes to business development. It provides some flexibility. So if you have 10 hours, you can fill 10 hours. If you have 10 minutes, you can fill 10 minutes. But doing it every week is the key. The worst thing in the world for our audience around business development, and everybody can tell stories about this, is where you get really busy and you don't do anything for 6 months, and then you got to get your flywheel going again. And that is horrible. Yes. So I know we're short on time. So anyway, Streaks can be helpful. We're short on time, but if you had to give one last, word of wisdom around really keeping the momentum. So if Streaks can get you going, that's and keep you going. Let's say somebody falls off the wagon. What do you do to get back going again?
Yeah. So I got to give a plug to my friend James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. He has this idea, he talks about don't break the chain, which is the Streaks idea. And he just also says, never miss twice, right? Something is going to come up where you break your streak, you break your habit, and that's fine. That's okay. That happened. And when that happens, you have two approaches. One could be, it's the end of the world. This is terrible. I guess I'll never be successful. And we're just going to end the habit right there. 20 days in a row, it's done. 100 days in a row, oh, I broke the chain, like we're done. Or you could take the other approach and say, oh, bummer. I really wish I had remembered to do that yesterday. Oh, well, I'm going to never miss twice. And I'm going to make sure I get it today. So I just pick up the habit and the streak as I go from there. And that's just a much more casual, lighthearted way to go about it. And that's what's going to result in you getting the long-term gains rather than, beating yourself up about it and saying, let me stop the whole thing because I missed once.
I love that. And audience, if you like James Clear, I think it's episode 3 that he and I mash up Snowball System and Atomic Habits. He's just an awesome human being, Nathan, like you said. So we'll leave us with this one last question. And obviously everybody knows it's coming, but we got to do it. Where should people go to learn more about you and Convertkit?
Yeah, let's see. So convertkit.com, I'm trying to think what would be particularly good to share. We've got a lot of workshops and webinars that we put out that are recorded in advance, so you can attend them live on some of these things, especially if, email courses and these sequences and other stuff were new concepts. Then I would definitely check out some of those workshops, and you'll find them on convertkit.com. And we'll just walk you through some more of the technical implementation. We talked really high level, and so now it's how you take that and put it into practice. So I check out the workshops and training at convertkit.com.
Awesome. Well, we're obviously big fans of Convertkit and have noticed just massive gains from switching from another provider to Convertkit, and obviously big fans not only of how the software works, but how you and Barrett and others run the business too. So thank you, Nathan. It's just been a pleasure on these 4 episodes. Everybody, if you didn't catch the prior ones, make sure you do. And in the next episode, I'm going to do a wrap without Nathan, and I've got a couple pages of notes here. And I'm going to summarize the 3 biggest things I learned from Nathan Barry. So that's coming up next. Nathan, man, thanks for being on the show. I absolutely loved it. I think our audience is just going to learn a ton from these episodes. Hi, everybody. It's Mo Bunnell, CEO and founder of Bunnell Idea Group. I'm your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue, author of the Snowball System. And I and my teams have trained over 15,000 experts all over the world on sound, efficient, effective, authentic business development techniques. And I am just thrilled to tape this episode, to record this episode with my summary of all I learned from Nathan Barry. Nathan's the CEO of Convertkit. Convertkit, if you haven't heard of it, is the platform we use to invest in all of our clients on a weekly basis with our newsletter. We now have 6 or 8 different complimentary training courses, really deep stuff that'll help you with your business development habits, with orchestrating a business development campaign to stay in touch with clients, to launch a new product, a new service offering, a new office in a new geography. Anything you got about new or just rekindling all your relationships, a campaign can help with that. That's at bdcampaigns.com. The BD Habits one is at bdhabits.com. It explains every single habit you need to be successful at business development. bdhabitsforteams.com is another one. Winning-more is a free course we've got on how to scale all of your business development programs across an entire organization. If you're a C-suite role, we tell you exactly how to do that. There's more than that, but those are just a few examples of all the courses, that free training courses, complimentary courses that we have loaded into Convertkit. It takes forever to build them, or a long time if you want to do it right. But once you do it, it sits there and works for you forever. If you want those things, you can go to bdhabits.com, bdcampaigns.com, bdhabitsforteams.com, winning-more.com. Like, those are all amazing courses that are all driven by Convertkit that we did slow, we did right. We packed these training courses with a punch, and then they sit out there and can help you. And it helps us because the audience gets exposed to our different methods. Great stuff. So that's what Convertkit does. And it was just super interesting to talk with Nathan, who's the CEO and founder of Convertkit, and how a tool as powerful of that. Just in a few years, he's grown Convertkit from a startup on his own, with him as the only employee, up to a $25 million business. And because he gets to work with thousands of professionals, thousands of creators on how they use Convertkit to be successful, then it was really insightful to get his input on what works. So if you didn't hear, or if you want to hear his insight on that directly, go back and listen to the prior 4 episodes because they are really good. Like, I not only just had fun talking with Nathan, but his insights were really good, really deep, really powerful, and were a little different than the kind of guests that we usually have on the show. A lot of times we have more entrepreneurs, author speakers, thought leaders that sell books and training classes, things like that. Things like we do that's a subset of what we do. But Nathan, as a founder of a platform, I think was a really interesting angle, and I'm so glad that I had him on the show. So if you want our newsletter, it would be the perfect time to share it now. In addition to all those complimentary training courses that I mentioned, you can go to growbigplaybook.com. That's growbigplaybook.com, growbigplaybook.com. And you'll get not only an instant little download that has an incredibly powerful 8-minute read on the 8 beliefs that you should have when you think about business development. It'll change your frame for how you think about business development, but you'll also get set up for our ongoing content as well. Every week, all our best thinking dropped right in your inbox. It's like a training partner for your business development skills. So go to growbigplaybook.com for that. All right, let me get specific. Here are the 3 biggest things that I learned from Nathan. And not only was it personally learned, but I'm also thinking about you. I'm thinking about the audience. I'm thinking about the professionals we serve. And because I really want to put a fine point on a couple things. First thing, Nathan said this so clearly, I could not agree more, and I'll tell you why. He said, teach everything you know. Teach everything you know. I can't tell you how many times people can have some resistance for this. Well, shouldn't they pay us for that? Well, why should I share information before we're hired? No, the exact opposite's true. You want to share an appropriate amount of information before you're hired, just enough that the client realizes they're learning, you're developing likability and rapport with them. Those are really important. So they're getting something out of it and enjoying the process is the point. But at the point you want to sort of quit is at the point where they realize they need your help to do more. So by teach everything you know, Nathan doesn't mean you just don't charge your prospects. That's not it. But rather, you're putting everything you can out there, sort of in the world through training classes and CLEs and whatever. But you're doing so in a way that's strategic, that A, helps your client and is enjoyable for them. They're getting to know you and they're learning. But B, teaches them that for some percentage of them, hopefully a large percent, they realize they need you for your big brain, for your expertise, for the services you and your organization provides. And you can start to figure out where you draw the line between teaching everything you know and actually getting engaged, contracts are signed, and we're helping solve the problem. We have a great community of people that learn and apply our principles in an ongoing fashion. We also have training classes that are live and really deep and all that kind of stuff. But we were in the community. It's called Grow Big Accelerator. And we were in Grow Big Accelerator a few weeks ago. And there's a financial advisor from one of the top financial advisory firms in the world. And there's all kinds of lawyers and accountants and consultants, professionals and account executives and commercial brokers and all kinds of people that have a deep expertise in something. And they also have to fractionally do business development. It's not their whole job, but it's a piece of what they do. That's sort of our expertise. 1 foot in delivery and 1 foot in retention and growth. And the financial advisor said, and we put a fine point on this as we went back and forth with a couple hundred people, is he said, gosh, the right line to draw is sort of once you framed the problem and you figured out how you work together. That's the perfect time to convert from the complementary part to the paid part. So in Nathan's mantra, teach everything you know, I thought that was really great because what you can do in that part where you're framing up the problem, you don't want to hold back on giving advice. You want to give advice. In that person's situation, his name's Anthony, he's just wickedly brilliant financial advisor. He was talking about how he can do an analysis of somebody's portfolio. He can look at what they're doing. He can think about their goals and how their assets and how they might think about lining up their assets to meet those goals. They might talk about their family. They might talk about how they enjoy working together. They might talk about the cadence that they might meet over time. As they start to frame out what it would look like to bring them on board his clientele and his platform, thing one. And thing two, how would they work over time to keep track, to keep things in sync, to keep things aligned, to adjust the portfolio for needs and issues that come up over time. At the point they talk about what it would look like to get going and keep going, those two things, that's the perfect time you can continue to teach, but that's the perfect time to have the discussion of what it would like to go ahead and sign the papers, get the thing done, and in his world, bring the assets over. In our other worlds, get started on the project, add the new service offering or whatever. So when you think about teaching everything to know, A, give with abundance. To the extent you can, do it at scale. I loved how Nathan we both talked about, heck, if you're going to spend 20, 40, 60, 80 hours putting together some kind of continuing education for your clients, why the heck wouldn't you spend a few more hours and package it up and be able to deliver it in an automated fashion using a platform like Convertkit or whatever your organization uses. So I see so many professionals. I want to get real direct here, and I'm looking at you folks. I see so many professionals do things in bespoke fashion. The speech they give one time and only one time. The training they give one time and only one time to one client. I want you to stop doing that. If you do it one time, and if more clients would have value get more value from it, then I want you to find a way to automate that at scale. Using a platform like Convertkit is a great way to do it. We do it. It works incredibly well. And like Nathan said, once you set up something that's automated, it takes a smidge longer to do it. Probably not that much longer than the content creation you're doing already. But once you set it up, it sits out there and works for you forever. So that was thing one. Thing two, I thought this was interesting when he talked about working in public. I hadn't quite thought of it that way before. But to the extent through your email list, on social media, things like that, you're in the right level, the right depth, you're sharing what you're working on. You're sharing the insights you're having. You're sharing what your team's looking like. You're sharing the developments you're making. That lets people develop a relationship with you. And I guess I had been doing that intuitively, but as Nathan said it, boy, did that make sense. What was running through my mind as he was talking was, how many people have come up to me at conferences that have had a phone call that they wanted to hire us. Maybe they had read the Snowball System. Maybe they'd gotten our newsletter for years. Maybe they'd watched our videos in bdhabits.com, our marquee complimentary training program on business development habits at bdhabits.com. And how many people have said, man, I feel like I already know you. I can't wait to get started. And I've never talked to him before. So by automating things, I consider a book automation because I was joking with Nathan. I forget the exact number. I could dig it up because I've got it documented. But it's like 865 hours or 4 hours or something it took to write the book and bring it to market. That's a big lift. But man, once it's done, it's an incredibly powerful asset that right now, a lot of people around the world are reading Snowball System and they're learning about our methodology, developing a relationship with us, and we don't have to be there. That's automation. Doing an email newsletter, sending it out on a weekly, monthly basis. That's automation. That's deepening your relationships. Thinking about, especially thinking about content courses where you're training people, but at scale through automation, through videos, through tools that are downloadable, things like that. But I think it's especially powerful when it's dripped out over time, over multiple days. Man, that is powerful. That work in public idea of then through those means sharing your story is incredibly powerful for people to bond with you. And I think as professionals, sometimes we can not be vulnerable enough. It doesn't mean we're sharing our deepest thoughts that we're sharing with our therapist or something like that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about our growth as a human being, what we're working on, what we're excited about, what we think we can do in the future that will be helpful to others. Those kind of work in public things with some specifics woven in about the things we're doing to the extent you feel comfortable professionally and personally. The fact you're running in a triathlon in 2 weeks, the fact that you're running a marathon, the fact that you're hiking a mountain, the fact that you're going to Yosemite for the first time. Some of those little tidbits, it's in the specificity of the professional side and the personal side that allow people to bond with you. I'm going on vacation. Doesn't allow people to bond with you. I'm going Yosemite for the first time and I'm real excited about it. That allows people to bond with you. Oh, really? We were there last year with the family. It's in the specifics that the bonding can occur. And in the way Nathan talked about it, appropriately delivered, of course, that likability can happen at scale. Really, really cool stuff. I'm going to do more of that after I talk to Nathan. Okay, third thing. I'm cheating here because there's 2 things in the third thing. So I'm giving myself an extra. But thematically, he talked about the 2 things he's looking for running Convertkit. It's pretty astounding when somebody goes from 0 to 25 million in revenue in a couple years, and they're on a trajectory that's blowing up. Nathan's going to be much, much, much bigger than that with Convertkit. And I'm excited for their growth because the product's so good. But the 2 things he said he's looking for are leverage and compound returns. And that really hit me. Leverage and compound returns. One of the things that we're doing this year, our 3 themes at Big, I'm taping this in 2021, but we've always got 3 themes every year. And this year, they are automate, integrate, and motivate. Now, there's specific things that fall underneath those 3 themes. And they also spell AIM, which is sort of cool for your strategic themes, and they rhyme, so they have to be good, right? But automate and integrate really fit well with this idea of leverage and compound returns. Automate is we're automating even more things than we've ever done before. Social media is getting automated. We're building out more of these complementary training classes. We've had so much success with automation and using Convertkit and other tools too in the last 6 or 8 months that we're doubling down on it. We can already see the ROI and we want more of it. So looking for leverage and compound returns. When I think of leverage, I think of that continuing education course you just created or that speech you gave. Once you build the content, ask yourself the question, how can I leverage that for other means? How can I get that on the internet? How can I get that in front of people that need to see it at the 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 person level? If you've already done the work to create the content, how can you help more people by getting it out at scale? That's a question worth asking yourself. I know so many professionals, probably the vast majority, 99+% that are our clients, at least before they go through our course. They build the thing, the continuing education, the speech, the webinar, whatever, and they feel that's the finish line. I want you to think that's the starting line. I'm just getting started with this content. I'll say it another way and I'll move on to compound returns. I want you to develop fewer things and get them out at scale or to automate, to be able to leverage them. I want you to develop fewer things and use them to your advantage more than develop lots of things that are only used one time. I hope that resonates. Find ways to do it. If you want more, go back and listen to the 4 prior episodes with Nathan because he gives some really specific ideas on how to do that. So if you like that concept, go back and listen to the last 4. Compound returns was the second thing in my cheat of what he looks for to run the business. As a former actuary, I really like the idea of compound returns. I was sharing with my daughters the other day, and as an actuary, I just sort of thought everybody is born knowing this, but obviously it's not true. I forget the exact ages, but roughly speaking, if you save in like in the stock market, invest in the stock market, if you save the same amount, roughly speaking, from like age 22 to 30, and then quit saving 8 years, and let that compound to age 65, sort of the normal theoretical retirement age in the old days, probably longer now, but let's just say that's what it is. So if you just save for like 8 years and then stop and just let it ride until 65, you'll have more money than if you start saving the same dollar amount at 30 all the way to 65 and let it compound all the way. Now, I might have the numbers just a smidge off, but roughly speaking, that's true. It depends on your assumptions, how much you earn per year and things like that. But roughly speaking, 8 years spent saving early is worth more than 35 years saving later. That is the value of compound returns. So when you think of your time when it comes to business development, ask yourself, what things can I do that I'll do at one time and it'll sit there and work for me forever? When we built our bdhabits.com training, amazing content. People were internally at our organization. I'll tell you that there's a couple folks that push back on me. Should we give that much away? Isn't that going to erode our training? You're adding so much value. Sure you want to do that? Like, no, we've got to do it. And the first one took a long time. Now we crank them out easily because we've got a system for it. But the first one takes longer. But that has been viewed by thousands and thousands of people. I've gotten emails from people on other continents saying how it changed their lives. I've gotten people that have emailed and say, hey, we want to hire you for a full training. This was really good. We really liked you. People watch the videos because there's videos in it, and they're developing a relationship with us as they do it. We're developing a relationship, and it's all automated. So I'll probably never take that course down ever. It's so valuable. We build it to be evergreen. It's going to be relevant 15 years from now. Build it once, do it right, do something that has compound returns, and it sits out there and works for you forever. A whole lot better than say, I would have built that program, delivered it to one client, and I would have done this 10 years ago. Delivered it to one client, not taking it to anybody else. It would have taken the same amount of time. They would have loved it, but it certainly wouldn't impact thousands of people. And it's only been up a few months. So those three things I thought were really good from Nathan. I absolutely love talking to him. The idea of teach everything you know, work in public, and then what he looks for to run the business, leverage and compound returns. Really, 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 really cool stuff. So I hope you'd enjoyed this series. Really cool 5-part episodes with Nathan. I absolutely enjoyed being around him. I learned a ton. So catch our next set of videos. We're doing these in 5-part series, or if you will, per person, as you've noticed. And I don't know what'll come up in the magical world of podcasting, who's next, but I know it's going to be good. Thanks, everybody.